Hi guys, in today's slideshow, we're going to discuss the relocation factors. And I'm doing this a little bit differently than the way I would normally do our videos, just because I want you to be able to see and understand the factors. And let me know what you think. If you want me to go back and do this video a different way, just kind of showing my face and talking through it a little bit. But because we're going over a number of factors fairly quickly, I wanted to do it in a slideshow format to be able to give you the factors and you can read them as I'm talking about them. All right, so my name is Alycia Kinchloe. I'm the owner of Kinchloe Law, a family law practice based in the Philadelphia area. And as you know, we've been doing these videos daily for 2021, talking about custody, divorce, and support. Make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you'll get a notification every time we drop a new video. Today's video is going to be about relocation. So we're talking about custody and when one party wants to move away with the child, but there's currently a custody order. Now, you want to consult with your attorney licensed in your state about the factors specific about your specific issues in your specific case, because there are a number of things, especially with relocation cases, that can be very gray areas. Sometimes it comes down to the way that your particular county might handle a case, or even what your judge may consider to be a relocation. Some people may consider moving outside the county a relocation. Some judges may not really consider that, especially if you live maybe on the border and it really does not affect the way that the custody exchanges are supposed to happen. Now, you'll notice that in all of the custody orders that should come out of Pennsylvania, and even stipulations or agreements between the parties that have been entered into court, there generally is language that will say that if the party proposes or wants to relocate with the child and it affects the custody of the other party, they have to follow Section 5337 about providing accurate, actual notice. So you'll want to take a look at that particular statute and familiarize yourself with it. And again, speak with an attorney so that you make sure you do it correctly. All right, so we're going to jump into the factors. There are 10 factors, mainly 9 and one catch-all factor. So the first factor is going to be the nature, quality, extent of involvement, and duration of the child's relationship with the party asking to relocate and with the party that's not relocating. What's also important here is that they also look at the relationship with their siblings, especially if they're going to be leaving those siblings behind. So if they have half brothers or sisters, and sometimes even step brothers and sisters with the non-relocating party, the court can consider that. Now, likewise, if the party who's proposing a relocation has primary, even partial or shared physical custody and with the other person, and they have children that they don't have with the other person. So let's say the person asking to relocate has their own children from a previous relationship. The court can look at the bond between the child in this case and that other child. So that's something that you want to consider. Now, a lot of the factors that we're going to talk about today resemble or are very close to the actual 16 custody factors. So if you're thinking that you're getting a little bit deja vu here, you're not. They really are pretty close. And even some of these are pretty similar to the other ones as well. All right, so you're going to look at that. And again, not just their siblings, but other significant people in their life. So again, we're looking at what's in the best interest of the children, and uprooting them, moving them away from a community, a village they know may not be in their best interest. These factors are factors that are weighed. So some of these factors, even though they may weigh in favor of one party, um, they can be weighed heavily in favor of one party and be enough presumably to make the decision in the overall case, but you have to go through all the factors. Now, the next case or next factor is the age, developmental stage, needs of the child, and the likely impact the relocation will have on the child's physical, educational, and emotional development, taking into consideration any special needs of the child. So when we're looking at this factor, and again, this is going to vary a little bit. There's case law that touches on each of these factors. They're looking at what's going on with the child. Is the child going through puberty? Do they have any special needs for which they're seeking treatment locally? How are you able to address those things? Or have you made sure that if you're the person asking to relocate, that they have the doctors, the support team, the therapy that they need to be able to deal with their special needs? If uprooting them is going to affect them in a negative manner because of their special needs, that is something the court is going to look at as well. Factor 3 is going to be the feasibility of preserving their relationship with the other party. So if a person is looking to move out of the country, across the country, how will that affect their relationship with the non-relocating party? And they're going to look at maybe you can give a custody arrangement that makes sense. Maybe the other party who's going to California is willing to give up vacations and the summer. And sometimes those days, when you add them up, can actually be more actual time with the child. Now, that does not mean that the court is looking specifically at the number of days. They are looking at the frequency and what the child came to rely upon, especially given their age. But the court can look at that. And they're also going to look at, again, the logistics. So flying back and forth, taking trains or driving, as well as the financial circumstances of the parties. Do the parties have the ability to actually afford to send the child back and forth, or for both parents to maybe go one way and the other parent come the other way, in order to get the child back and forth? So these are all the things the court is going to consider. The court can also consider if one party, even if it's not the relocating party, has the financial wherewithal to be able to do the travel or pay for the travel costs. The court may still say that it's feasible in that situation, even if the person who's asking to relocate can't afford to take care of the travel costs. All right, number 4 is going to be the child's preference. And it's very important to understand that the court is going to not just ask generally the child where they want to be, but they will look at the age of your child. They're going to look at their intellectual ability to understand, make decisions, and why they're making decisions. So, again, the maturity level, all that's going to come into play, and the judge will use that information to perhaps determine what their preference would be, and also whether or not it's appropriate to even try to find their preference. Children of young ages may not be able to say where they want to be, but their preference still may be to be able to spend a significant period of time consistently between the two parties. So that is another factor the court is going to consider. This is one factor that we also see in the 16 custody factors that we would see in a normal, regular custody case. All right, factor 5 is going to be whether there is an established pattern of conduct of either parent to promote or thwart the relationship of the child and the other party. So if mom is looking to move away because she can't stand dad and she's been withholding the child, dad has been fighting for custody time, mom has been in contempt a number of times, and now mom is looking to move across the country, that is something the court is going to consider. Because if you're not following the order right now when you live 10 miles from each other, why would the court believe you're going to do when you live across the country? So the court is going to look at that, and it's not just going to be those types of situations, but it's going to be behavior, it's going to be disparagement. Those are things the court is going to consider as well. Factor 6, whether the relocation will enhance the general quality of life for the party seeking the relocation, including but not limited to financial, emotional, benefit, or educational opportunity. Now, sometimes this factor and the next factor are the two main factors that people will think about or focus on when it's a relocation case. But those other factors are important, especially if the person who's looking to relocate has no choice but to relocate. So think of a situation where maybe someone is in the military or their spouse is in the military and they have orders. So when it comes down to that, those are things the court is going to have to consider. When it's just a pure choice, the court may look at these factors a little bit more and say whether or not they're going to do it. Especially if one parent is saying, well, if I don't get the relocation, I'm not going to move away. So the court will look at that. So they're going to look at, your job. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit technical, because the court can look at whether or not you're going to actually make more money, if there's better opportunities, and kind of how that drips down to your child. Are you going to be able to put them in a better school? Have you researched the schools? And that's going to, again, tie into the next factor. What types of things are going to be present for not only yourself, or not only for the child, but also for yourself? So basically, this factor focuses on the party. And then factor 7 basically takes that same information and focuses on the child. So even though it might be a better opportunity for you, it may not be great for the child. If the public school they're going to go to is far worse in the place you're relocating to than the place they're in, the court may say it's not in the child's best interest for them to move away with you. So you want to understand that. You want to be able to gather evidence in the way that best tells your story, that best shows the court why it's important for you to be able to move, and why these factors should be weighed in your favor. Again, this is where you really want to consult an attorney. Often in these types of cases, the judge will ask for information ahead of time. They may ask you to put it in your modification request. They may ask you, oftentimes they will, for a brief or a memo regarding these factors as well as the custody factors. So you want to be prepared. You want to know what evidence you can use, what's admissible into court that's going to support your case. Now, one of the things I talk about here when we talk about this factor, and we're still focusing on the parent and the child, what the courts have often said is that someone getting married is not often enough. Now, there are some ways I know as an attorney that you can get around that, especially if the parties have been together for a long time. There's things, arguments you can make to make that a more successful argument. But oftentimes, if it's purely for the relationship of the party, the romantic relationship of the party, excuse me, that may not be enough. Often it's not enough for the court to allow relocation. Now, factor 8, the reasons and motivation of each party for seeking or opposing the relocation. And now it may feel like we've kind of talked about this a lot, and we have a little bit because all these factors kind of tie into each other. But again, what is the reason for moving away? Is it just because you met a new guy or met a new girl and you want to move away with them and see where this relationship goes? Are you kind of just kind of giving up what you're doing and going to a new place and looking to start all over, but not really taking the time to plan it? A lot of times the court is going to look at that because, again, we're looking at the best interest of the child, which generally leads to more stability and more planning. Um, so the court is going to look at the reasons for that, but they're also going to look at the reason that the other party is saying no to the relocation. Are they saying it out of spite? Are they saying it to keep you near? What are the real reasons for them objecting or opposing the relocation? Now, the next factor is generally the last factor, but factor 9 is going to be the present and past abuse committed by a party or member of the party's household and whether there is a continued risk of harm to the child or an abused party. So we're going to look at, again, past and present abuse. Is there protection from abuse order that involves the parties? Even if it doesn't involve directly the child, they will look at whether or not there has been claims, orders, criminal history of abuse by the party, either party, or anyone in the household. And it doesn't, like I said, have to be just a party. If dad has abused prior girlfriends and was in jail for that, something for the courts to consider. If mom has had a protection from abuse order against her from dad, something the court needs to consider. If there has been involvement by Children and Youth Services, Department of Human Services, DHS, because of things that have been alleged in terms of abuse or neglect with regard to the children or other children, the court will consider that. And even though they may have been in the past, the cases have been closed, the court will look at that, but then it will also go to the next step and determine whether there's a continued risk of harm to the child or the abused party. So again, this is a factor that we also see in the custody factors. So the court is, again, paying very special attention to this. And in the statute 5337, the court says it's going to weigh those things that focuses on the safety of the child. And then we have the last factor, which is our catch-all factor. And that's going to be any other factor affecting the best interest of the child. If there's a great opportunity for the child to move away, do gymnastics, they are maybe very involved in that. That's a good factor. If something has happened with relationship with the child, maybe there's a custody order, but dad hasn't been following it for a year. That is something for the court to consider. So there's a lot of things that that may fall in this catch-all factor. If mom's job moved away, it closed down and moved away, and she has to go, or she holds a high position in the company, now the company has relocated to Tennessee, for example, that is something that the court can consider. So if it's something beyond mom's control or dad's control, these are factors. And you can go as far as you like that is appropriate, and again with the counsel of your attorney, when determining whether there is an additional factor that weighs in favor of or affecting the best interest of the child. So I hope this sheds some light on the 10 relocation factors. We're going to talk a little bit more about this because this is a very complicated, or can be a very complicated period or area of law that can affect whether people are able to pursue their careers, able to move to different location, maybe able to move back home after they break up from a relationship. So these are things that the courts can consider. And there are some there's case law. So cases that have been decided that continue to determine how some of the decisions should be made in these types of cases. All right. Again, remember, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you'll get videos. And whenever we do a new video on custody divorce and support, you don't miss it.